and welcome to the How of High Performance. And today's guest is the most incredible person with such varied achievements. I cannot wait to get into the conversation. And I welcome Cath Bishop, who is Olympian, former diplomat, leadership and culture coach, and also successful author. Welcome, Cath.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks.
As I said, what an achievement list to share there. And I'm so fascinated by the experiences and the insight you're going to kindly share with people listening or reading. But this could be the first challenge of the conversation, Cath. Could you give an overview of your incredible career so far, just so people can get the context of where your insight comes from?
Yeah, I think there were sort of three sections, as it were. So the first was the Olympic career. So 10 years as an Olympic rower. I went to 3 Olympic Games and, experienced different cultures within that. And experienced a sort of shift within what high performance culture meant within the Olympic system, and also my own journey of working out actually what does it mean to try and explore how good I could be at something in a team environment. The second section is my career as a diplomat, 12 years in the Foreign Office, and within that specialising in conflict issues and working in a variety of scenarios, both from London, worked in Iraq, worked then supporting others going into conflict situations, preparing them. And so that was a kind of very different high pressure, high stakes environment. And now the last decade has been really drawing on what I learned from both those experiences, stepping back, making sense of them and understanding a bit more of the sort of evolving theory that I think has really shifted in the last sort of 10, 20 years as well, about what it means to lead under pressure, what it means to develop teams under pressure. And working with, a whole range of organisations across business, sport, education, on topics of leadership and culture.
Gosh, I think we should have a whole day together going through those subjects because I'm so fascinated by them. Given your incredible experience as an Olympian, as a diplomat, and all the leadership focus you do in your own work with businesses, how would you sum up high stakes? How would you define what does it mean?
Yeah, so I think of high stakes as being, it's something that matters to you, something you care about, that also has an impact on others beyond you. And that's the high stakes is if it goes wrong, it's not just you that's impacted, you're going to impact on others as well. So I think those are the key things. It's something you really, really care about, but it's going to have consequences.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. So I would normally ask this question as a key high stakes, but I want to be a bit greedy given your chapter of 3, okay? Because I would love to know a high stakes leadership moment from your time as an Olympian, your time as a diplomat, and your time in your kind of third chapter. Because I just think they're so different with similarities, but so interesting. If you could kindly share an experience from each of those and very much help us understand the approach, like what did you do to navigate as a leader the high stakes situation that you're sharing?
Yeah, I think it makes sense sort of in my own mind to sort of draw on those, because in a way there's a learning journey across each of those worlds that I probably didn't handle initially so well and was sort of learning in their own world and then translated across. So, I mean, I think in many ways, the challenging turning point in the Olympic world was managing a terrible result in my second Olympics when I felt I should be peaking, when I couldn't have trained any harder, when I felt that, the pressure was on me to deliver. I felt, I could and should, and I felt it was expected from others around me that, I wanted to kind of be that person making history, and this was my moment. And, it all went horribly wrong.
Gosh.
For quite a lot of reasons why. So, actually looking back, some of the things that I then worked at in the next Olympics, some of the sort of wider performance angles weren't in the right place in terms of mindset, communication, culture. And, so a whole host of things weren't really where they needed to be. Just training harder than anyone else, which kind of was the culture at the time, isn't enough. And so actually I felt very exposed in that moment. And I felt I had let myself down, let a lot of other people down. And I think though it forced an enormous amount of humility, because I had to get up and own the result. and I couldn't
On a
change
global
it.
stage as well.
Yeah, I can't change it, and everyone knows it. I mean, you
Oh,
feel everyone knows it, of course.
yeah, of
I mean,
course.
other people, people might know it for a minute and move on, but you feel it's just that, the most public failure of all, and that somehow my value as a person is diminished from it, and my opportunity to positively impact others hasn't come off. I failed. I failed to create something, play my part in sport, sporting history, to sort of, really pay back all the people who've helped me along the way,
Wow.
play
No
back,
pressure then, Kath. No pressure at all.
pay back, my potential, and, live this moment that I felt, was meant to be. And so, of course, in hindsight, it's a moment of immense learning, immense questioning, and over the next period, because of that result, I was sort of forced to look at things through very different eyes about what, over time, why are you valuing and tying up your identity with this one activity that you also
Interesting.
can't guarantee or have full control over? Why is that? Why can't you have some identity beyond that? Why do you need this to justify who you are? And then these sort of, why are you thinking that other people will see you differently for that result? Why do you think people won't, love you in the same way, or support you in the same way, or, be sad alongside you, and kind of understand that's what sport's about? And, why have you been blind to some of the things that you could have done to be in a
Gosh.
better place? And some of that was in my control and some of that wasn't. And so, out of that came a kind of 12 to 18 months learning. It's not sort of one moment. It's a long,
I
it's a
bet. I
long,
bet.
it's a long moment, a moment in life, but probably quite a long period of months of questioning, questioning, questioning. And initially, I guess, wanting to justify things, and then realizing, I've just got to be sort of super vulnerable, super humble, and face it, and own it. And it's okay, really, really good people who train really, really hard and have a decent amount of talent and a lot of commitment can come ninth at an Olympic Games. And that's now part of my story.
Hmm.
And I need to make sense of that, and I need to find a way for that to help me move on and grow. And I think sort of out of that came, a sense of really needing to think about who I was beyond sports. It's a trap a lot of elite sports people fall into. And also then to, I got really curious about this bigger, if I don't feel I've really given, if I don't feel I've performed to my best of my ability, what could you do anything differently? And that was really the beginning for me of this sort of long win thinking. My book, The Long Win, is about redefining success in broader ways, and really bringing in aspects of your mindset, your behavior, who you're becoming on this journey. And then when I went back after sort of 18 months of One More Olympics, I went back with a very different definition of success. Still, of course, part of that is aiming to win the medal. That's the
Of
game.
course. Of
But with
course.
a much stronger sense of who do I want to become on the journey in that pursuit, and what do I want to walk away with, regardless of the result? What else is going to last beyond? What would any medal represent? What would any non-medal result represent? Yeah, what's the meaning? What are the people involved in that? So a kind of redefinition. So I'll leave that there because we might come back a bit more into
Okay.
long win principles.
Hmm.
Um, I think sort of if we then jump into a diplomatic world, firstly, I kind of felt how indulgent it had been to think sport is high stakes. When I then kind of worked in the real world, and, like, this isn't about boats going backwards fast up a lake. This is about really high stakes. Yeah, people's lives are
Mm.
involved, particularly in conflict situations. So I actually started that job in that gap before I went back for my third Olympics. And having that perspective was enormously helpful to go back in, want to have one more go, fully in the perspective that, you know what, this is really not impacting the world. And, let's not get it out of perspective. So perspective was
Mm.
enormously important. And so I think I felt all the time in the diplomatic world, I was very aware this is something where, all of our negotiations have an impact on many people I won't even know. And so I think there were sort of different scenarios, but sort of the moment is that moment inside a negotiation when things aren't going well, when you've not moved forward, when you need to take a little bit of risk, because the only way things move forward is through trust with others. And trust is about interpersonal risk, right? It's about, it's not going to move forward if I just stay on safe ground and go, well, I did my bit and, I kept to our line and all that. No, I've got a responsibility. I've got an opportunity to move something forward. Diplomacy is about the art of relationships and how the only way you can move things forward is through relationships. I often find people tell me their organizations are relationship based. I don't really see that. I see task based operating. But here it really was. And we absolutely planned and worked around relationships, built them, deepened them, broadened them. That was our job. And in a negotiation scenario, you sort of have two processes. There's the technical stuff of whatever you're negotiating. And then there's the human process in the room. And that's the one that will determine whether you really move forward or not. Yeah, you have to know your stuff on the first space. But actually, you have to get to know people, and there are lots of barriers, often linguistic, political, historical. And, in those moments, you have to reach out to someone. You have to really try and understand their perspective as much as possible. And a lot of our training was around listening skills. Actually, persuading others is about listening, seeing their view of the world, not necessarily agreeing with it, but really seeing it. And, starting to go into a what if. Essentially we're trying to do something together that hasn't been done before and you can't do on your own. Tiny, tiny steps matter to keep us moving forward. And so, it's in those moments, those high stakes moments are where the next step is not on the piece of paper and you have to be vulnerable, reach out, go into a bit of a what if we thought about this in some different way without knowing what the answer is. Being willing to see, could something else emerge? And to being a bit creative, to sort of trying to let your gut kind of go, give you a sense of how you and these people, you've got to pick the moment in the negotiation. If people are too tired, it's not going to happen. If they're too angry, it's not going to happen. So there are little moments you also need to be really attuned to think, come on, can we do something that others have failed to do? And can we together do something that will also create a little amount of risk for all of us? And those are the high stakes moments.
How do you keep the emotional piece? Because obviously in those situations you are life and death. You're doing something new. It has significant repercussions for many, for perhaps an entire nation or nations. How do you keep your own emotions and that of the team in check when the stakes are that high?
It's difficult because you need the emotions as well up to a point. You're going to connect, and people will only move if they've got an emotional connection with you.
Isn't it?
Isn't
it interesting?
Yeah.
Pull and push, yeah.
You're never going to get movement on a rational basis. Here's the evidence. This is the right way forward. Just look at how the map is created. Yeah, there's nothing rational about it, is there? Right? We make decisions, don't we, on our emotions? We like to think, of course, we've got all the maps in the room and we've got all the evidence and the data and all that. But that's not what we make decisions on. So you do have to connect. But you're right, in our negotiation team, a huge part is recognizing and helping each other on that. And just saying, oh, this is, maybe somebody in the room is sort of triggering me a bit, or, I'm getting really frustrated by this. And I either need to do something to let go, or I need to talk it through with someone. And maybe somebody else is the one to have the conversation at this point. So again, checking on each other, because the emotions often sometimes change what we hear as well. So we would use each other a lot to go, I'm hearing them saying that. Has that changed from yesterday? I think I'm hearing something different. Am I? And you don't pick it up because you're also thinking so much about what am I going to say? What could I do? And so we used each other a lot for that. And I've seen that in kind of like the highest levels of sort of police negotiations in hostage situations, things like that. Absolutely incredible skills of listening. And because the moment somebody's position shifts a tiny amount, just a new word comes in, even a new tone of voice comes in, that's a moment for movement. And those are your opportunities. So tuning in is important. So yeah, we used each other because you can't pick up everything.
No.
And you have to then recognize, I'm finding this is really, making me feel irritated or angry. And so then I've either got to go and diffuse that, talk it through, understand why that's happening, and maybe also step back, which is really hard. and let someone else have that conversation. And yeah, it can be really difficult. So there's a lot of self-awareness, reflection with
Yeah.
others, and recognizing the emotions, but also using them.
Yes. Yeah. And what about the third chapter? Is there a high
Yeah.
stakes
So,
moment in the
I
third?
mean, in my work now, which is a variety of different aspects under the leadership and culture umbrella, I do some coaching work. I work with leadership teams. I do some small consultancy around culture change, and I teach on executive education programs at the Judge Business School, and do a bit of writing. And those aspects all help each other. Because what I'm trying to do, drawing on the two previous careers in many ways and building on that further, is to help people tune into the what I call the real cultural life. Yeah, not what's on the wall, not what's written on the paper, not the values on the website. Actually, what's happening? Can you tune into that as a leader? Can you understand the mindsets of people around you and how open they are to new ideas and how much safety there is? And in order to do that, you have to really take people out of their comfort ways of thinking and
Mm.
patterns. And so there were often moments there where I could kind of stay in a comfortable, we all know this, let's check off, have we got shared goals and all of that. And there are always those sort of high stakes moments where I know I've got to push myself to take them somewhere they're not comfortable. And I don't know how they're going to react. And I don't know what the answer is, because there isn't an answer. Yeah, with culture, we want to explore and understand it without ever fully coming to the end of that or ever fully understanding it. But finding a way in my own mind, I feel I'm always working out. And afterwards, I'm always thinking, could I have done that differently? What am I missing? What courses do I need to do to help people tap into deeper culture more? What's the right answer? But actually, again, it's trusting in the moment. What's the right question that will help somebody stop and see something differently? And I can't just point out, come on, you're being really corporate about this language. Where's the human side? I probably need to help them discover that. And therefore, I need to kind of take a couple of steps back to coach them to get to that point rather than point
Mm.
it out to them. And if I
Okay.
don't take those moments to do that, if I jump to being prescriptive or directive or staying on safer, easier ground, the stuff on the surface, then I've missed the really crucial kind of high stakes moment where I could have got a shift in their understanding of culture and their lens on organizational life. And those are really when I'm getting higher value, I think, in, getting more impact in trying to get people to think about culture in different ways.
It links back to your piece around spotting that moment, listening, and being brave enough to take the risk.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think in high stakes, they go hand in hand. you
Yes.
you cannot achieve high stakes positive outcomes without embracing risk.
Yes. And you're thinking, have I got the credibility to go there? It's
Mm.
uncomfortable. I haven't got the answer to where we're going now. That's the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
point.
People have to trust you greatly to allow
Yeah.
you to
Yeah.
also take them there,
Yeah.
don't they?
And then I don't know what that's going to look like
But
because I
that's, I guess,
can't.
that's part of the joy, though. That's
It
part of the
is.
creative process, isn't
It
it?
is. It is.
Yeah, but it's not always easy. It's
It
not.
isn't. And we're
No.
very unskilled and untrained in our organizational lives to go there, unfortunately.
Yeah, or
Um,
even if we do go there, to what the so what afterwards, isn't it?
yeah.
How to
Yeah,
take it
yeah,
to the next level.
exactly. Then, oh my goodness, how do I do this? How do I do this
Uh-huh.
again? What does this mean? Can I create a document around it? What are the rules? How do I write it down? Yeah.
Exactly. I always think in these conversations, high stakes doesn't just exist in leadership and business. It also exists in life.
Mm.
And we are very much ourselves, whether what job title we have, what careers we've had. We're humans with all our relationships, etc., that go with that. So I'm always also fascinated if you're willing to share a high stakes moment from your life that you
Mm.
encountered. And
Mm.
again, just breaking it down into practical how, because my world's all about how.
Mm.
How do we take it forward? How you were able to master a high stakes personal situation.
I mean, my mind immediately goes to parenting, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I fail in some high stakes moments.
Okay. Tell me more.
I think I find the how very difficult. I think it's harder to regulate my emotions
Uh-huh. Okay.
than it is
Interesting.
in an Olympic environment or a diplomatic environment. Yeah, those high stakes worlds, I was better at regulating my emotions than I am at home with with my children.
Thank you for the honesty. I think a
It's
lot of the
terrible.
no, it's not. I'm a mother too, and I sometimes think, thank God, Supernine's not filming me.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think is the key difference there, Kath?
Um, I mean, I think in those other worlds, there's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of support. I'm part of a team,
Okay,
and
interesting.
we're preparing ourselves for those moments. And I think I then feel very underprepared for those moments in the personal life. They arrive and then they've gone, and you sort of think, yeah, I probably could have had a better impact there. And I've sort of not seen that. Yeah, not seen it coming. So, um, that would feel very obvious. I was so conscious of them coming in those other worlds. So, sort of prepared and looking out for them and saw that as part of the role. Whereas I think I kind of have underestimated those moments and then not seen them coming and then not manage them as well. And maybe it's harder, the emotions are so personal that that's harder to regulate. Maybe they go sort of back to your own childhood
Yeah,
emotions, and it's closer to those. And I haven't had the skills to, yeah, to sort of have a good how. So
hmm
some reflection. Um, I'm sort of aware, yeah, of losing patience and those sorts of things in a way that in a workplace you just wouldn't and couldn't. Um, I think I'm still figuring it out.
I think we all are on the parenting side, to be honest. Do you know, something came into my mind as you were
Mm.
speaking there about the difference between the Olympics and the diplomacy and then being at home. And there's a real brutal, naked truth, isn't there, that actually we're paid to manage ourselves better when you're doing the Olympic. Or there's more like there's an overt role that you're actively taking on where people are looking at you for an outcome. Whereas parenting, there isn't that outside. Well, there isn't kind of the outside exchange, is there? You're kind of
Yeah,
just
I
in
think
it.
others are watching, right? Others are watching in those worlds,
But
and
not in
so
the intimacy of it.
yeah,
Not
I
it's not
think
quite so on a stage. I think as well.
yeah, yeah, and that's interesting. Why does that make such a difference? Yeah, I think you're right, and part of it is, um, how am I managing this moment to the people around me? Because that's going to have the next impact. But why am I not thinking that in the parenting space? So I'm just sort of switched off from that, and then I'm sort of not super alert to that. I'm not sure. I'm now not in. I'm now really thinking aloud. Um, but I think actually felt raised by this sense of people are watching, and so this matters how you handle yourself in times of, you know, frustration, and it's part of what you do. And again, maybe I've somehow not had that, in my expectation. Why can I not? Well, one thing that's interesting. Why can I not adapt something from one into the next? Um,
Yeah.
I just think that's quite interesting in the concept of resilience, which is something I've sort of read a lot about, experienced a lot about, involved, very practically in terms of how do you build resilience as an athlete? How do you build resilience, if you're working in a very hostile environment? And the thing is, you can't transfer everything. Some skills transfer kind of straight away, but some don't. And I think actually I found those things didn't translate brilliantly into parenting for me.
Yeah.
That it's a different type of resilience somehow.
Oh my
And,
God.
yeah, it's quite interesting to, quite vulnerable, quite sort of humbling to kind of go, gosh, all of those things I did didn't really prepare me well for this.
It's really great honesty. I think again the higher stakes raising another human is pretty high. Hey,
Well, yeah, yeah.
I think this could be a second book, Kath, for us both. So if we focus back into the leadership, let's take us both into the safer territory of
Yeah,
leadership, business,
I
and
know.
high
I don't know
stakes.
where that was heading. Yeah,
Well, I think another conversation would be very interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what lessons, given those lovely 3 chapters you kindly shared, what lessons have stayed with you when it comes to navigating high stakes situations that you think will be helpful for other senior leaders to hear?
Yeah. So I think, but in a way, this is what I distilled in my book in many ways. So the book, The Long Win, is about rethinking, first of all, our picture of success, because our picture of success often drives what we think matters, you know, the way we think, our mindset, our behaviors, and then how we connect with people around us. So what we think we're aiming for, you know, how important are relationships? How important is our mindset? But what are the things we need to believe to try and get to this goal of success? So I'm all about, particularly with that Olympic experience in mind, I'm all about kind of broadening or deepening what success, how we define it, so that it's something that's lasting and not temporary. I.e., it's not just a moment crossing the line. It's just not just a moment getting a medal or standing on a podium. It's not just a moment getting your quarterly results. Yeah, it's actually, what do those represent? Yeah, so what's the story behind the pursuit of your medal? What's the story behind your quarterly results? Yeah, are people burnt out? Have they learned? Have they had a great team experience? That really matters, because that is always what's going to determine what happens next, what you take with you. So what's the kind of lasting success, the longer term success, the stuff that's left after the bits you're really good at measuring, which are usually short term, temporary, and a little bit superficial. And then to sort of get into that mode of thinking, I use kind of 3 C's. Clarify, or clarity, constant learning, connection. And these are sort of ongoing patterns to get us out of a kind of short-term, short-win way of thinking. So clarify what matters, or maybe clarify what else matters. So, you know, in a sports world, yeah, the medal matters, but hang on, what else matters? It matters how I go about pursuing it, values, you know, the community I'm part of or not, the impact I have on others in that, what I'm representing, what I'm role modeling when I'm out competing or training. That's sort of, what's the bigger purpose? What does it matter? What's the contribution here? What does that medal signify? Does it signify anything after the moment it's put around your neck? What would you be left with? And, you know, part of that, what's the person you're becoming on this? Who do you want to become as an athlete? So again, a broader sort of piece there. Constant learning, just, yeah, really leaning into that, being open all the time, you know, just in a way, that's what helped me in that last Olympiad, was to sort of just go back to learning, relearning, unlearning. And sports psychology shifted at that point to, let's not all talk about winning. That doesn't make you go any faster or do any better. Let's just think about improving all the time. Sports psychology really teaches us to think about being in the moment. How can you improve your performance? You know, literally in a rowing, how can you make one stroke better than the stroke before? How do you improve faster than your opposition? How do you be world-class at improving? Because do you know what? That's your best strategy for trying to win, to be as fast as you possibly can, to think much more about a kind of infinite, what's possible. Yeah, how fast could you possibly go? How fast can you make your boat go? And then you bring that into the finite race. Yeah, that's your best strategy. But it's a lovely strategy because it's very expansive. It's very open, rather than I've got to win and beat everyone else. That's somehow quite constraining. We don't want to be constrained. We want to be filled with fear. So it doesn't help you think, make decisions, manage stress, stay relaxed. So, you know, all of those things that were just coming out in that third Olympiad and kind of much more prevalent in sports psychology sort of really helped me then to just go, I'm just improving every day. I don't know what result I'm going to get in the next one, and I can't control that. But what I can control is, am I improving? And am I also improving across a wider set of things? So not just the easily measurable stuff, the weights, the, you know, speed of something, how fast I am, how fast I go in a rowing machine, but my mindset, my behaviors. You know, am I able to be resilient in a more kind of meaningful way than before, not just the sort of toughness bit. And so, yeah, really, really challenging myself to, am I really open to feedback? Am I really taking that on board? All of those sorts of good learning, you know, mindset, behaviors, and then using others around you as well to be really part of your, you know, we're all learning together, helping each other. And that made a big difference across our team in that last Olympiad, rather than being pitted against each other, where actually you end up, you know, not wanting to help someone else. That's no good. When you come to race the rest of the world, yeah, we're all on the same team. If we've got in the way of someone else developing, well, that's stupid. So it's in all our interest that we all learn as much as possible, and the fastest boat will go. And we hope that we're in it, but we can't guarantee that. But actually, it's in our interest that we all learn and help each other learn as much as possible. And that made such a different experience.
Fascinating.
And sort of then, you know, it's that rising tide that everyone's improving. And the last one is connection. So seeing things, setting goals around relationships, connecting, rather than running life around tasks, thinking much more about the relationships, looking at your calendar, thinking much more about what are the relationships I'm building this week, not what's the stuff I've got to do. in the course of doing those things, who are you going to get to know better? How are you going to deepen that relationship? How can you build some trust? How can you help them challenge your perspective, learn from them? So really setting much more of a kind of relational lens on the work you do.
So much to unpack there.
Yeah.
If I was to, though, go for the simplistic focus, simplistic might be the wrong word, but if of all this lovely, plethora of ideas and insight and experience and wisdom that you're kindly sharing, and I said, right, Cath, there's only one you can share with fellow senior accomplished leaders, so people who are not green, they've got a lot of success under their belt, but they're still striving for that constant learning, that improvement. What would be the one piece of advice to give them specifically for successfully navigating high stakes situations at work?
I think it's about consider the human stories that are involved at every level. Your story, your journey, your leadership journey, your colleagues, and all the people who are impacted by this moment. Yeah, don't reach for numbers and data. They'll be there and you'll need to have that. But always calculate in terms of human costs and benefits.
What do you think the benefit is of doing that? So if someone's thinking, okay, logically, we talked about logic and emotion earlier on. Logically, I get that. But what's the benefit of actually? Because it's a lot of investment to do stories, look after people.
Well, it's far richer, and you'll miss things if you don't do it. That will be really significant. So there's a lot of things that are important that we can't measure well. And those things matter. Those are often the things that have the lasting value. So, yeah, I think stories, impact, experience, and it is worth calculating those because those are the things that in the end will actually come back and hurt you if you can't make the best decisions.
I love that. Cath, that's a very powerful and focused and mic drop moment I think we've reached. So I'd like to just say thank you so much for being so generous, so open, so candid, and sharing your success, because tell us what you did achieve in the Olympics. Obviously you had that.
I mean, the final 2 years I was a world champion and Olympic silver medalist. But I think really it was coming away with a different way of thinking that, was that's what's given me the most value, was actually what I learned on the way to that.
I know, but I love your humbleness that you haven't even mentioned the bits that you did go on to go and win.
Yeah, because actually they're in a broader perspective.
I know. But just as a fascinated listener, I just think that's also a nice part of your story to share with people.
Yeah. It works, right? It works.
There you go, you see? There you go. Cath, thank you. You've been a joy to have on the programme, and thank you for your contribution. It's really, really valuable.
Yeah, great to chat. Thank you.